This episode is brought to you by
Co-creation.
Welcome to Leadership Actually. It's not love, it's leadership. Welcome, Lisa Powney.
Welcome, Lee Rogers. How the devil are you? What have you been up to?
There's lots going on at the moment. Juggling.
Yeah, always juggling.
Childcare and all that good stuff. Bit of work, create new business, cycling. I'm sure you're bored of me talking about cycling. But yeah, lots going on.
It's all going well though.
Yeah, most of it, I think. Well, some of it. It's messy, as always. You think it gets clear and it gets messy, but no. Hey ho, that's life.
Definitely.
How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Yeah, I'm all good. I'm getting excited because the choir, you know, my latest this year's fad, the choir, we've got our first concert. Half the songs I don't know, but we've got 2 weeks left to learn, so I'm excited about that.
Are you doing a performance?
We're doing a performance in a church hall.
Where?
On a Saturday night.
Where?
In Scholar Green, if anyone wants to come. Yeah.
It almost sounds like a book. It should be in a book, that.
Yeah. So yeah, but it gives me joy. I absolutely love going because, you know, you don't have to think about it. Just go along, have a good old sing song, and they do tea and biscuits halfway through. So I love it.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
I'm a wonderful singer in the shower on my own.
I'm not great, but it doesn't matter. Nobody, you know, that is not part of the criteria.
It's just about the crap.
It is. Just go along, have a sing song.
Oh, smashing. I love that.
I know. So that'd be good. First concert.
Nice. So, thinking about that and it giving you joy, let me ask you a question then to start us off, kick us off. When have you noticed a shift in energy, whether it be negative or positive in work, and then what's the impact on others either way?
Good question. I think I probably noticed one recently because it'd been at work time, you know, it can be like really busy and you get involved in lots and lots of stuff and, you know, and actually I had some time off with my boy. And I did some really lovely stuff and I genuinely switched off and enjoyed that time, and I really noticed the difference coming back to work. I actually set some real intentions of things that I was going to do, you know, that week that I came back, and I think lots of it came true, lots of it came out because I'd reset, I had, you know, had some genuine time to switch off, and I changed up my energy, and it also made me realise how much I needed that. We need to do that. Sometimes we go for too long of a spell without actually pausing and giving ourselves rest. Like rest is not a word that we all embrace. You know, we always say, oh, I'm really busy, and that gives more accolades, but actually rest is really, really important. And I just absolutely noticed the difference, and vice versa. If that doesn't, you know, if it doesn't happen, I really feel that in my energy. So yeah. What about you?
Yeah, similar really. So done a few fun activities this week. So been temping bowling, which I was a champion at.
Of course.
It was probably maybe
really?
I actually got beat on the first game, and I tried my hardest. I was gutted, like genuinely gutted. An 8-year-old beat me, but then, you know, like being present. I think I've spoke about this before, but I think that's the bit that intentional presence. Yeah. It's a bit I struggle with, but I've nailed it a little bit this week. Going to the zoo on Friday, so really looking forward to that.
To the zoo. How about you?
Yeah, and it'll probably be raining, but like, oh, well, we've got a coat. It'll be all right, you know. Just go and have some, like you said, fun and joy, and because they're the bits that you remember and are special.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, as well as working and developing leaders, I think rest. You know, the rest element of that. Almost, I think of rest as like active motion, though, like rest in motion.
Yeah, absolutely. It
So
doesn't
not
have to be lying down, does it? Although I do love a lie down.
That's one of the best moments of this. Should we introduce today's guest?
I'd love to introduce our guest. Naomi Dake, how are you?
I'm good. Really good to meet you both.
Oh, thank you so much.
This morning here in this beautiful space.
It is, isn't it? A lovely space. It's a really good space. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
We're really pleased to have you today. And I guess our introduction is very much aligned to your whole ethos. You know, you've done lots of things in the leadership space and had lots of different roles, but actually there's a real passion there when it comes to wellbeing. So I'm really looking forward to explore that with you today.
Yeah, me too.
But before we do, I'd like to give you a formal introduction, if that's all right, and then we'll dive into the messy stuff. So, to describe you, Naomi, you bring a wealth of experience across people, culture and organisational environments. You've spent your career working in and around the realities of how organisations actually operate on a day-to-day basis. You've held roles across HR, people and culture, giving you a front row seat to the pressures, expectations and behaviours that shape how work really feels for individuals and teams. Through your experience, you have developed a clear and honest perspective on wellbeing, not as a standalone initiative, but as something deeply connected to leadership, culture and the environments organisations create. Your work now focuses on exploring that intersection, challenging the gap between what organisations say about wellbeing and what people actually experience. The conversation today is about moving wellbeing from something we just talk about to something that is genuinely lived through leadership, culture and everyday moments at work. Does that
sounds good to me? Yeah. Very nice.
And that there is something bigger in your purpose, when we talk about some of that, well-being as a practice is really important, but well-being as a culture can really change people's lives, and that's really clear part of your foundation. So we can't wait to dive into that.
Yeah.
But this is the messy class. So before we get into understanding a bit more about that, I'm going to ask you a messy question, if that's all right. So we talk a lot about well-being in a positive and proactive way, but can you share a time when something felt out of balance for you, or maybe your energy or your boundaries or the environment that you were in? What did you notice? How did it impact you and the people around you?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I think for me, I would have to go right in at the deep end and say, back in 2018, so 7 years ago now, scary, no, more than that, nearly 8 years ago.
Wow.
I went through my own version of burnout, and it was a complete mental, physical, emotional burnout. It got diagnosed as chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME, as it's also known, and it was definitely a messy moment for 2 years, actually, of figuring out what was going on, what was happening, what I could do about it, how I'd got there, but also how I got myself back out of it. And it was a really, really challenging roller coaster of a ride. And when I think about your question of other people around me, I think I really feel for them, actually, because I would have looked okay on the outside. Not glamorous, but I would have looked okay on the outside. But on the inside, it was a totally different picture. Yeah. I had zero energy for quite a lot of that time, and I had a big learning curve to go on in terms of recognising all the patterns and the behaviours and the mindset that had got me into that position. And there were other factors. So for those people with CFS and ME, there's a lot more to it than that. It's effectively a perfect storm of things that can contribute to that, from external, internal factors. But essentially what I learned from all of that was it changed the trajectory of my life into well-being. So actually, weirdly, although it's the messiest moment, it's actually probably the moment I'm most grateful to.
Yeah.
Because I think if I hadn't done that, I don't think I'd be sitting here today. And that sounds really dramatic. I don't necessarily mean it that way, but I don't think I'd have had the eyes open, awaken moment that it really gave me. And now the respect I have for the body, for the human body, all of our bodies, I think is just on another level. And it's taught me how to live in a much more healthy, much more sustainable way. And so I had to go into the mess to work it all out and then come back out.
It's such a common thing that we hear, actually, in that once you experience something, you appreciate it on a whole different level.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the thing that shines, and I'm sure it'll come through, is I get a sense that this is everything. You know, you are well-being throughout. You know, it's not fad. It's not a pick up or put down.
No.
Like the personal brand is Naomi Wellbeing.
Yeah.
I connect the two constantly. I can really see how that, when you say it's changed your projection, certainly for me from the outside, it seems that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know we describe what you do, but like, how would you describe who you are? Like if you're down the pub with your mates and chatting, or someone didn't know you, how would you describe you?
Good one. How would I describe me? I'm trying to think what would my friends say. What would my husband say? I'm not sure that was repeatable. I would hope people would say that I was a good friend, that I was loyal. I am someone that you can be honest and down to earth and have a laugh with. I think I'm someone who always gets told that I'm very calm. And I think that goes back to an inner peacefulness that I'm always seeking, that I've been seeking for a long time and didn't really know it. And I think that's what comes across as calm and grounded. I'm not always feeling that, but I think that's what people would say. I think I'm hopefully someone that you can tell something to, say what's really going on, and I'll be there. And I will, 100% be there for you. That's what I would hope people would say.
And I think you even just sharing part of your story, though, as you've just done with us there, as a snippet, I think it encourages that in reciprocation.
Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah, I mean, it does certainly help in a coaching capacity, and when I'm with a group and I'll share stories like that and experiences like that firsthand, not to make the story about me, but to actually show people that there's a different way to live, and that there are things that we're all trying to figure out. We're all messy humans, messy, imperfect humans. And I'm no less messy or imperfect than anybody else. But I guess what I'm learning is that it's okay to show up as yourself. Yeah. And the more I do that, the more I try and be in that present space that you talked about, Lee. And the more I do take the rest, and the restorative and lean into that, the better I actually show up. Because if I'm just busy on all the time, I haven't got any of that space to give other people or give myself. So I think, that's been a big one.
I think you are very calm and very authentic and vulnerable, and I, experienced that myself. So you totally come across in that space.
Oh,
but
thank you.
What's your backstory? So before 2018, is it 2018? When you realised that and you were diagnosed, what were you doing before that? What was Naomi's journey that took you to that place?
Yeah, so interestingly, I started out in HR, like a lot of us. I did a postgrad in HR, went into a whole range of different HR roles for all sorts of organisations, including a double glazing company, which was interesting. I saw the in and out of a few tribunals. But I was in HR business partner roles, doing a lot of that work, doing the generalist HR work. Yeah. As I moved into different roles, I moved into more of the organisational development space and realised that's where I'd found more of a home, because I think I've always been what I now know is a system thinker. And I didn't really know it at the time, but that's where my strength lay, in really being able to see what was going on in the whole picture of an organisation. So when I went into consultancy after that, it helped me to get an understanding really quickly of what was going on in an organisation, what their culture was, what their dynamics were, what their system was, what worked, what didn't. and how could we try and improve it with them and take people on that journey. And then when I set up my own business 5 years ago now, that's what I wanted to take forward really and build upon, was to work with clients that I could relate to and help, but people who wanted to go on that transformation journey and believed in people, really valued people, cared about them, and wanted to create a different environment. And that's where now the wellbeing and the OD, the organisational development side, come together for me, because you then start to work with the whole system.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really important combination, and I will dive into that actually in a moment. But before I do, so you were doing, this work, and so what were you noticing about your own symptoms, and what was going on for you before that point when you go, I need to do something different?
Yeah, so on the kind of, if I zoom out to the life perspective, what was happening, I was travelling a lot with work. I was on early trains, planes, buses, all sorts of things, up and down the country. Yeah. Pretty stressful, complex programs and roles. So there was always a work stress going on. There was also a kind of sense of needing to please people, needing to make sure everyone was okay, and that was happening in all parts of my life. So real kind of helper, pleasing, fixing, rescuing tendencies showing up in all areas really. There was some stuff going on in family, friendships that was taking up quite a bit of energy. Added to that and the work stress, I wasn't really doing the self-care in any shape or form. I was eating on the go. I was tired, so I was drinking coffee, too much, and it just, I was giving myself no space. My needs were at the bottom of the list. Yeah. And that's not a kind of poor me story. That's just where I was, and it didn't feel okay to get to that. It felt like I needed to make sure everyone else was okay, and then I'd get to it. But the then never came. So I basically ran through my reserves, and I was operating on the kind of lowest fuel, I suppose, at the bottom, and that inevitably meant that I was getting ill. Yeah. I was getting colds, flus, that sort of thing pretty regularly. And my body was trying to tell me, and I realise that now in hindsight, that it was trying to show me there's a different way here. But I think I just did the classic, keep going. Yeah. It'll be okay. I'll just work through this. Which I look back and I think, that clearly that's where one of the errors was in my approach. And the body had to say no, ultimately, to kind of just stop me in my tracks. Yeah,
so it wasn't a choice, it was...
No, there was no choice.
It was done to you in the end, because you hadn't given what you needed. Yeah,
exactly.
There's at least one person listening to this right now that will be going through the same thing as what you've described. I guess I know not medically trained, but what one piece of advice would you give somebody that probably needs to hear like some of your story? What would you say to them?
I think the most simple thing I wish I'd done is just stopped earlier and really taken heed of what was going on, because if I look back, the signs and the symptoms were there. I could feel them, and I knew it wasn't great. I think if I'd stopped then, I might have, I don't know, but I think I would have been able to take back some element of control and stop it going into ultimately the crash the kind of body went into. I think I'd have been able to take some time out and really just pause, listen to my body, catch it earlier, put in more of the preventative self-care, and really listen to what it needed, where I didn't. I just carried on through. But that would be the thing I would say. If you're getting those signs and symptoms, don't do what I did and hope it'll be okay. Just find a way to stop in your own way, and literally take yourself off for a little while to get yourself back again.
And do you, just building on that, do you believe everybody needs that self-care, that hobby, that activity, that switch off? Because I often hear, I actually think I'm quite good at doing that, you know, hobbies and doing other stuff. But Lisa Cole says about her fads and things. I know my wife definitely isn't good at that. Like, she's bottom of the food pile.
Yeah.
Working long hours, trying to do everything for everybody else, probably please her. Like, when you went through your list, I was like... But what I also know is I can't say that. You know, that it has to come from within.
Yeah, it does, and that's the tough part. I think does everybody need it? Yeah, I think fundamentally we're humans and we do. We need that holistic well-being. We need something that supports our physical, mental, emotional, social, and whether you call it spiritual or self, it's that self-development aspect to it. I think I only came to that through recovery, but what I realise now is those are the things I needed as a well-being practice to be embedded for that to work. And you're right, it does have to come from within, because I was hearing people expressing concern and saying, you seem tired, you're getting ill quite a lot. And so other people were joining the dots, and I almost didn't want to see it. And I think what you can't do is do it for people, that's for sure. But I think maybe what we can do for people is to create that permission through the stories and the examples and the lived experience to be able to say, if you're in this place, this is probably where it's going, but you can take some steps to do something different. And that's really important, because we need you to be in your best self. We need you to be okay. And it's not okay that that you're not okay. You don't need to do as much as you're doing. And I think there is a bit where the individual has to take the reins a little bit. You're right, that has to come from the person. But I think if we can create an environment, whether that's in the family or in the workplace, where it's okay to put some of those helper roles down, or some of those pleasing, achiever, whatever it is roles that we're playing. I think if we know that we're okay without all of that, that can give us a permission to step back from them and to decouple ourselves from those behaviours.
I think you've given some really good tips already, you know. So in terms of your recovery, you did come through it. You come through the other side, and I'm sure it's always work in progress. But what were the steps? So you paused. You had to pause because your body told you. What were the steps you took on your road for recovery that you are now, you know, helping others do the same?
Yeah, so I think one of the key things for me was understanding. I needed to understand what was going on, what was happening in my body. This was a complex thing that I couldn't just rest for a couple of weeks and it would sort itself out. So I actually went and found an independent clinic that specialised in chronic fatigue and ME. And I equipped myself with basically a framework, tools, strategies, understanding, to really get a sense of what is this and what do I need to do, what's wrong, what's happening in my body, what does it need. And I think with that understanding, I could then start to put some things in place for myself and work out my own recipe. Because I think that was the scary bit, that there was no pills you could take that would make it better. There was no one strategy. So in the end, what I came to was this idea of the holistic well-being, that I needed. I needed a bit of all of it. I needed the joy, I needed the presence, I needed to do my own self-work and understand the patterns that had contributed to me being in that place. I needed to really understand my relationship with my emotions, because so much of it I'd pushed down. And of course, what then happens, I didn't realise at the time, was that can contribute to inflammation, aches, pains. It can impact and lower the immune system. And I didn't realise any of that connection. So once I started to understand that, and understand that the mental patterns were exhausting my energy levels, I had to shift mindset to start to work out, okay, if I don't want this to be the way it goes, I need to find a different route. I need to create that. And what helped me was other people. So other people were ahead of me in that journey. They'd been through it, recovered, come out the other side. And they were helping me and everyone in our position to learn and work out our own map and create that journey to recovery. And that's then why I wanted to go back in as a practitioner to help other people and share that so that they could recover, but hopefully they could catch it perhaps earlier to avoid the need for that.
So that holistic view, is that something you've carried on now in your current work? Is that part of your framework?
Absolutely, yeah. And we actually use it in workshops now. We use it with clients. We use it with teams. So even though it came from a kind of recovery setting, actually what I realised was it was just a fundamental way to be well.
Yes.
For all of us, and that was regardless of, nobody needed to be ill to use it. It was actually a recipe for wellness, and that is something that we now build into all of our work and our offerings, because it gives people the ingredients to create their own recipe once they have that idea, once they have that framework and understand why it's so important to have it.
I love that recipe for wellness is really, it really sticks with you. So we talked about that as a program, or and you can give people some of those ingredients, but you yourself had to work on mindset. How do you do that in an organisation? So let's go to the difference between having a program or having a workshop and well-being as a culture. What is the difference? What does it need?
So I think when you're talking about well-being as a culture, it's something that's deeply ingrained in that organisation's DNA. It's not something that we can have on an activity calendar and tick it off. It's fundamentally what we believe in as an organisation over the long term, and that we're not going to ditch it if something happens in the short term, or the numbers don't look good, or something changes. It's a commitment, and it's a commitment for life for that organisation, that it invests in its people. And a lot of organisations will say they do, and they do. But I think it has to go deeply into the whole system, the whole ecosystem of that organisation. That it's in every part of the way that an organisation operates. It's in its leadership, it's in its decision making, it's in the way it communicates and prioritises, it's in its physical environment, it's in all the interactions, it's everywhere. And we don't separate it out. So when I go into an organisation and I see it working, it's really quite hard to put it into words, but you just get that feel.
Yeah.
And the people get the feel, which is the most important thing. The people know that they're valued, that they're safe. I think if you don't have that foundational psychological safety, you're not going to truly have a wellbeing culture.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably something we all know, but you can feel it when it's there, and you can feel it when it's not. And I think if you have it and you work on that as your first step, I think that's where you're going to be in the best possible place to build a wellbeing culture, because you've got a solid foundation.
Amazing.
And what are the real benefits in real world? So to leaders that go, it is faddy, it's not about performance, it's a nice to have, because there's lots of misconceptions or miscommunication around what the concept of well-being. It's relatively new, even though it's been around forever because we're human beings, right? But this concept of well-being, and I say that as someone who created a wellbeing foundation only 8 years ago in an organisation.
Yeah, so what does it really look like on a practical level? For me, it's the fuel that you put into the organisation. So if you think about an organisation as a living thing, a living ecosystem, it's not a static thing. It's a living ecosystem. It moves, it changes, it evolves. because it's made up of people. And if you nurture that environment with people, through people, and they feel genuinely valued on a personal, individual level, holistically, that they are fundamentally valued, not their role, not for their outputs, not their KPIs, but them as a person, that is where you get the performance. That's where you get it sustainably, because that individual knows and understands what this organisation is about, and they know their part in it, they feel valued in it, they really get the sense that they are integral to it, that they're not just a replaceable number on a spreadsheet, or a bum on a seat, if we can say it that way, but they are genuinely valued for their whole contribution. I think when you do that, there's a leap of faith for organisations to make that is the right thing to do, and that the bottom line performance will be the outcome. And I think that's where a lot of organisations can struggle, because, and I've seen it myself, and I've seen it with the best of intentions, that they get hung up on the short term, the metrics, the what's this going to give us, what did that workshop result in. And I'm definitely not saying don't measure, I'm definitely not saying don't be accountable for the impact, but look long term and understand that it will be in the mix, that if you look after people, they will do the right thing, and they will feel trusted to make decisions, to think creatively, to challenge, to tell you when things don't feel right, and they will grow that ecosystem with you. But if they don't genuinely feel trusted, and that trust goes all the way deep down, then that will limit their level of safety and contribution, and ultimately will limit your performance as an organisation.
And what are leaders' roles within creating that, would you say?
So for me, leaders are really key. And I think, without trying to scare leaders, I think there's a phenomenal privilege of being a leader, that you can have such a massive impact on people's lives, not just their careers, but their lives. People can go home enhanced by what they're doing in your workplace, if you get it right as a leader. But I think as leaders, it is about leading by example. It is about saying, if you take the Scandinavian model, which I absolutely love, the long hours, overtime, it's frowned upon. Work-life balance for them is sacred. Yeah. And when you look at the rankings, they come out in the highest performing, highest for happiness in the world. So you kind of think they're getting it right. It's not fluffy, it's not nice to have. It actually makes sense. And the organisations and the country, society performs better because we're taking care of people. So for leaders, I think it's about genuinely getting to know your people, genuinely understanding who they are, what makes them tick, their strengths, the things they struggle with, where they're at in their lives, what's going on for them, and then finding ways to support them, finding ways to make that environment work for them in a way that makes it easy for them to contribute. And there'll be days, because we're all human, there'll be days when we all have off days. There'll be days when we're not at our best. Good leaders understand that, and they prioritise the person. And I think when you do that, you build the biggest loyalty possible, because people understand that you're consistent, that you've got integrity, that you'll do the right thing by them. Sometimes you'll have to make tough decisions, but people will accept that if you are true to your own values, if you're clear about why you're doing that, what's important, that it's genuine for the greater good, and you operate your team like a community that helps one another, then actually, as leaders, our job gets easier. It sounds like it's really hard, and it can be, but if you're in that mindset, it becomes easier.
Just brings to mind that you were talking about role modelling and showcasing effectively. Have you come across leaders that put themselves to the bottom of the pecking order to look after others within their team? You know, we talk about it being a privilege and maybe missing out on their own well-being, active, lack of boundaries. Have you come across that at all?
I have, and I think, in fairness, that's probably what I was doing as a leader at the time, which didn't help in my burnout. What I learned from that was that servant leadership is a brilliant leadership style, but it doesn't mean that you don't take care of yourself. I think that was the fundamental bit I got wrong, because I was doing all of the external focus without enough of the internal. And I think what I realise now is you have to flip it. And that doesn't mean you become selfish. It means you become accountable for your own self. And I think we're all self-leaders anyway. I think regardless of position, hierarchy, etc. I think we're all leaders of ourselves. And we all have a responsibility to do our own self-work, to take care of our own well-being, to make sure that we can contribute in the best way we can. That doesn't mean be machine-like. It means be authentic, be true, and say when you're not having a great day, say when you need help, say when you've got too much, absolutely. But I think leaders have to model those healthy boundaries. You know, if they're the last one in the office at whatever time o'clock after hours, that's not the way we're going to go. It's not the way it's going to work. You know, coming back to places like Denmark and Scandinavia, they absolutely stick to a 37-hour week. And if they are the most productive and happiest, I kind of think, why are we still in the office or logging back on at whatever time in the evening? You know, actually, we're becoming less effective because all we're doing is burning through energy rather than topping it back up again.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of this, when you talk about the ecosystem, is about energy, isn't it? It's kind of it's about what we put in and what we're taking out. And if you can find ways to help your people have more energy, they're going to be more productive and for yourself. But I guess, and you probably come across this a lot, would love to move to the Scandinavian way, but actually the people that you probably face every day are having more, they have to do more with less. We're seeing lots more of that, aren't we? Lots more of time pressures, a lot more of burnout. So what sort of things do you do with leaders to help them shift some of this stuff when it feels like, how can I move or think about well-being when I'm just asked to be doing more and my people are more stressed and, you know, I don't think they are well, but what can I do? What sort of things can we help them so that they can take that control back?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, because that is the reality, and much as we would like it to be different, that is how a lot of people are experiencing it. I think for me, I come back to what is in your control. What can you directly influence? And as a leader, there's more you can influence than you may think. That actually you can call out the things that are not helping in that ecosystem. You can call out the cultural, systemic issues that are not helping your team to deliver in the way that they could, you know, with the right support. And I think for leaders, it is about taking that brave, awkward kind step, you know, the Brené Brown approach to think, well, actually, I'm willing to do things a bit differently. You know, I don't want to put my team in that position where ultimately we're going to end up with high stress, we're going to end up with high absence, we're going to end up with unhappy people, unhappy customers, and so on. So actually, if we can create, as leaders, little mini microclimates within our teams, and by the way, start talking to our peers about that and what we're doing, and trying to spread the word about what we're doing, I think that can create quite a powerful momentum that then starts to shift some of those cultural dynamics, because leaders have to be willing to have a go and be a little bit different, and that takes courage to do that. But I think if you can, and you can feed back to your leaders what you need from them in order for your team to deliver and to do the best you can, I think that's for me the way I start with leaders. It's really about how can you control what's in your your gift and make the best of that. Create the model that works for you. And hopefully over time, the results and the outcomes start to shift the organisation's view, because they recognise that actually this team have got less issues, there's less grievances, there's less recruitment need, there's less churn, there's less absence, there's less stress. And they start to pay attention. But sometimes you have to be delivering some of those tangible results for them to kind of get it.
No, so really the focus is on that behaviour and giving them the confidence to actually take control of the things that they can control.
Absolutely.
And actually that confidence to have the voice and create some of that psychological safety that you talked about. You also mentioned, just for people who might not know, microclimate or climate. Why is that important in creating that culture of well-being? What is it?
Yeah, so if you look at the work around psychological safety, so Amy Edmondson was the Harvard professor who has kind of done a lot of work in that space. She's one of the leading thinkers in it. She talks about psychological safety as a shared team climate. And I think that's quite an interesting way to look at it, because essentially what that means is that the team feels safe enough to ask for help, to raise issues, to say when things are not working, to bring new ideas, to suggest different ways of doing things. And I think if you build that, that's your foundation to the climate that says my team feels safe enough to be themselves and to call out when things are not right and to suggest other ways. And I think as a leader, your job is to remove the problems, remove the barriers, and increase the enablers and the support. And if you can do that for your team, you're creating that microclimate, that environment for them to succeed, for them to thrive. And when you do that, your team thrive, you thrive. And the organisation starts to thrive because it starts to see what's happening within. And I think that's how you change things, just one bit at a time. It doesn't have to be I think sometimes we get caught up in the big change across the organisation. And I think where I've seen it most effective is when you start small and build upon that, and don't go big bang actually, but you start to create some simple shifts that start to move that ecosystem in the right direction, and that then starts to create movement in the whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of turning that big ship around one little step at a time.
Yeah,
sometimes
absolutely.
It can be so overwhelming, can't it?
Yeah.
So thinking about that, because we could ask you lots of questions, but thinking about where you started in that holistic view, if you've got a listener, a leader listening today, what are those aspects in your holistic framework that they could start to think about for themselves and their teams?
Yeah, so the 5 elements that we work with are mental, physical, social, emotional, and spiritual or self, however it translates. For me, that can look like lots of different things. It's your own recipe for how that works. But mentally, I think what we're trying to do is to create space for people to think differently and to bring in different ideas. I think we're trying to encourage movement. We're trying to encourage more active movement, freedom, trust. Allow people to work in the way that gets the best out of them. Don't prescribe how they do it. Give people the space to do that. And build in play, joy, social connection, emotional connection. I think if you create all of that, people will find their meaning to what they're connected to.
Brilliant. And we can maybe share some of that actually attached alongside this.
Sure.
I love that. And you know what? I've listened and I think you've just like simplified it in lots of ways, but equally like some of the pitfalls, it's not necessarily a policy that's on the, like that stuff's important, but it's actually how you live it and breathe it is kind of what I've heard you say, like the small stuff. That really resonates. And I'm someone that does try to do too big to like get it wrong lots of times, but yeah, you've given me lots to reflect on, and the listeners and watchers of this. So thank you so much. We could talk to you all day. Final question from me: who's the one person that we should have in the hot seat where you are now?
gosh. That's a tough one, because I would say a lot of the people I work with, that I'm privileged to work with in what we do, would be fantastic here, because I know they all have that mindset and the wavelength of values. Yeah, I don't know if I could pick one person to be in the hot seat.
Go on, pick one.
There's people I've worked with who I've recently had on my podcast, and there's a lovely guy called Colin who's actually joined as one of the associates, and he's got a fascinating background in the Navy, but he's now bringing that into leadership. I think he'd be a great and interesting story.
I agree. Definitely.
Amazing, thank you. And what a shout out for your podcast, what's that called?
It's called Bringing Your Whole Self to Life, because it's all about well-being and self-discovery.
Lovely.
Love it, amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that's a wrap for this week's edition of Leadership Actually. As ever, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.